Hi, friends. Welcome back to Dead Funny University. Today we're doing something a little bit shorter. It's called a study group. And the whole purpose is just to kind of prep us to make sure that when we go into some of the movies that are coming up, we know what's going on. So, Chris, do you know what's going on today?
Talking about Unbreakable
Yeah. And why are we talking about Unbreakable?
because we're getting ready for Glass. Getting ready for
Yeah.
Glass.
All right, Chris, you know a lot more about Unbreakable and Glass and kind of both of the stories that go into it. So, we're going to do two separate episodes where we're going to introduce you to both of the other major characters that are going to be in Glass. So that way you kind of have an idea of what's going on if you choose to see the movie. So, Chris, what do you have to tell us about whoever's behind Unbreakable?
So Unbreakable, the movie is more about um, David Dunn, I believe is his name, Bruce Willis's character. Basically, the entire story is kind of like an origin story for him and kind of an origin story for Glass. We don't really get too much information about Glass, which I think his name is Elijah Price, I believe. Um, so basically, I guess the best way to really put it into perspective is for it to start with Glass's origin, which is that he was born with a very rare disease, a very real disease, where his bones are just extremely brittle and they can break extremely easily. And I believe he said he's broken somewhere around 98 times throughout his life, which is painful. But he has a very superior intellect. He's a very, very smart person. Growing up, since he wasn't able to play with a lot of other kids, he kind of just grew up in a life of doing nothing but reading comics day in and day out, day in and day out, and falling in love with his comic book whole history. But then he ended up seeing a parallel as far as if there was a superhero, there was normally a supervillain to match that hero, and they were usually complete opposites, which led him on the path of trying to find Mr. Unbreakable. Since he was Mr. Breakable, there had to be a Mr. Unbreakable, and he hears about this man who survives a train wreck that I think killed 131. It killed everybody. The train wreck that happened, everybody died, but Bruce Willis's character, David. He was the only person to survive, and not only did he survive, but he didn't have a scratch on him. So his skin is literally impenetrable. Um,
So, David Dunn, Unbreakable, his character, it's about his skin. That's the part that's so special about him. Is that correct?
Well, it's not just his skin. So that's
Okay.
where like a lot of these theories and stuff, because I don't know if this one is 100% been thrown out there, but he can't swim, which is where one of his fears of water come into play and why that's one of his weaknesses. And a lot of people think that it's his bone density because of the fact that he can't break bones or anything, and how fat all that is, that like he physically can't swim, like he's too heavy because he can't float either. He sinks directly to the bottom of water. He physically can't float either. So they think that kind of goes into it, and since he hasn't been able to swim his whole life, it's kind of caused him to have like a fear of water and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think they could have done a better job with his water issue. Like, I mean, in in reality, it makes sense. I get it, but like one of the things that I also heard is like he has to be careful about how he drinks water. Like if he drinks it too fast, he could drown in his own. Like that doesn't make sense to me. To me, that's
Hmm.
dumb. But
It seems like a little bit too far, but
yeah,
okay.
yeah, you gotta have restraints. But I mean, it's not like M Night Shyamalan's been writing comic books, so I guess we'll give him a break. But so that seems a little bit dumb to me. But basically, and what's actually very interesting about Dunn is that he was actually in a previous car accident, 'cause he used to be a football player, and he was dating someone who didn't like him being in football, who ends up becoming his wife in the movie. So they get into a car accident, and he acts like he was hurt in order for him to be able to end his football career to be with his girlfriend, because that's the only way he saw out of that, which is one of the things that was kind of like a big deal in the movie of like, oh, was he actually Mr. Unbreakable, because apparently he got hurt during da 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 da, and Samuel L. Jackson's character Elijah Price is the one to figure out that obviously he wasn't hurt, type deal. So what's cool about the movie is that if you watch the movie from start to finish, you start basically like they have an interaction where Elijah tries to throw all this onto him, telling him about this whole like superhero idea he has. Obviously, Dunn's just like, this is a bunch of bullshit, da 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 da, and the son was with him. And what's cool is that watching it the first time, you'll miss a lot of the stuff because you don't quite understand exactly what it is that M Night Shyamalan was trying to do, which is what he's known for.
Yeah.
Comes back and slaps you in the face later, and then makes you watch the movie again. So at the end, one of the biggest things was like the scene of where like Dunn goes back to talk to Price, after all this shit has happened to him, because like he goes through like all these extreme trials of like almost drowning and having to like save people and this and that, fucking this hospital catching on fire, all this other shit, or apartment complex catching on fire, something like that, like all this shit. I think it was a hotel. Either way, doesn't matter, something like that. Some kind of living quarters. And what you didn't know the first time through is that Price is actually the ultimate supervillain because he was the person that was putting all this into motion. So he was literally in control of everything from the start. So this leads into something that me and you were just talking about off camera, which is, does Glass have superpowers? What we know so far is that he has superior intelligence. We know that. It is rumored and theorized that he also has the ability to maybe some extent to control people. If not, maybe just controlling their mind or controlling a little bit of their conscience, something like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting is that in the new trailer that came out for the actual Glass movie, the lady talks about keeping him sedated 24/7. So if he's just this unbreakable man in a wheelchair who can think a little bit better than everybody else, why would he need to be sedated 24/7? It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if he can control people, so they're thinking maybe he controlled some of the orderlies, made them do some shit that they didn't want to do, maybe do some bad shit or something like that. Therefore, that's why they had to sedate him. And there's a couple scenes where, like, for instance, going back to Unbreakable, where it shows Glass in a bar talking to a guy, and it's a guy that was a maintenance worker for the whatever the fuck it was for like 20 years. And he says specifically, I know the ins and outs of that building. They'd never met each other before. He's like, I know the ins and out of that building. Anyone, if there was a fire to happen on the first, second, or third floor, everybody on those floors will die. Why would you just give that information to a complete and total stranger? So a lot of people think that obviously he was able to manipulate the guy with his mind and give him the information
Mm-hmm.
that he wanted in order to set that up, so that way Unbreakable would have to go and fix all that, which is pretty interesting in my opinion. If that's like an actual power he has, because as of right now, all we know is he has a superior intellect, but that doesn't necessarily mean he has a superpower. If anything, he's
Mm-hmm.
quite the opposite, because you could flick him and his whole body will break. So
Okay, so just to sum up real fast, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that everybody's kind of got the same base knowledge here.
go ahead.
The film that we're preparing for is Glass, which is coming up.
Right,
And there are two films that are leading up to this one, which
right,
are called Unbreakable and Split. All
right.
three of these films are out in a universe created by M. Night Shyamalan to kind of tell this very interesting human superhuman story. And Unbreakable, I believe, came out back in 2000.
Yep.
Split came out in 2016. And Unbreakable is specifically the story, the origin story of David Dunn. Glass, which is coming up, is about Elijah, and Elijah's both the supervillain that you're talking about in Unbreakable, and possibly the one that we're going to finally learn more about in this third movie. Is all of that correct?
I think all that's correct except for the end part. I don't think we're going to get too much of an origin of Elijah because we already got his origin. I think it's going to be more of we're going to learn more about him current as far as any powers. But I
Ah,
think that
okay.
this is going to be like Avengers Endgame. Like this is shit's going to go down. It's definitely more
Okay.
because like I mean the first opening scene of the trailers, all three of them have been caught and captured and are in an insane
Mm-hmm.
asylum, sitting next to each other because there's a doctor that specifically works on people who have delusions of grandeur is what she called it, thinking that they're superheroes, and that's why they're all three together. And so I think basically what we're gonna see happen is Glass either using his power if he has one, or smart talking his way to the Horde, as he calls himself, which is the beast from Split,
Mm-hmm.
and convincing him to be on his side and using him to cause the chaos that he can't cause because once again he bruises us very easily, and Unbreakable is going to have to stop it. So
Okay. So do you think this is kind of a like break out of where we're at story for these three very interesting characters? Because David Dunn knows Elijah,
mm-hmm.
and he knows he's in there, and he knows who he is and how he's been manipulating his life. Correct?
To an extent, yes. I'm not sure if he
Okay.
100% grasps the concept that he was behind everything, but I think that kind of
Mm-hmm.
unraveled a little bit towards the end. So he does know that he 100% he believes the whole superhero thing that's going on for sure.
Okay. Do we have any idea about whether or not the main character in Split, who went by so many different names, it's hard to keep track. I do believe his main name, however, is Kevin. If you haven't seen it, that may be a giveaway, but I believe that character's main name is Kevin. Do we have any idea if he knows either Elijah or
He
David
doesn't.
Dunn?
Or he sees David Dunn at the end of his movie. That's how we
Uh huh.
knew that it was part of the Unbreakable series. That was continued to be a series because no one really
Hmm.
knew that. I mean, you got to think about it. It came out in 2000, and then 16 years later, we finally get something to where now it's 3 years from Split, and we're finally getting Glass. Like we're going from fucking 16 years to a 3 year jump. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, apparently, according to M Night Shyamalan and some behind the scenes stuff that I was listening to, um, there was always a plan to put the Horde in uh, the first
Oh.
movie, but he couldn't. The way that he wanted the story to work with this back and forth of like good and evil and the tiptoe and not having the middleman in there just seemed so much more fascinating and easier to grab than having this middle guy just running around just causing fucking chaos. So it's a lot easier for him to do kind of like a dual origin story between the hero and the villain and then just give an entire movie to his name is Kevin Crumb, by the way. So that's
Hmm.
actually interesting. I want to touch on that right quick. That's actually very interesting. Is that there's a theory going out there, and I kind of feel like it's 100% true, honestly. But there's a theory going out there that these characters' last names actually mean something to them. So Kevin Crumb, as in crumbs, as in pieces of a person, because he's got 24 different personalities, 24 different
Yeah.
pieces. So Kevin Crumb. You've got
Okay.
David Dunn, as in like this is the finished version of like what a complete superhero is, the Dunn version. Um, Elijah Price, the price it pays to be, a supervillain, like the fact that he has to pay the price of being able to have the intellect and shit that he does, everything else, of being brittle and shit like that. And then it even leads
Hmm.
to the doctor in this movie, Ellie Staple, because her job is to fix people and staple them back to humanity, bring them together. She's bringing all three of them together. Ellie Staple. I was like, that's pretty cool. If that's true, that's pretty fucking cool. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah. But yes, you're right. His name is Kevin Crumb. So yeah, I mean that's basically how it's went so far. So like I said, I don't think we're gonna get too much of an origin. We might figure out a couple of other things that we did in the first. I do think it will
Hmm.
probably be pretty heavy centered. If I had to guess, let's say the movie is 2 hours long. I think the first 15 minutes is gonna be pretty heavy centered about their day-to-day routines in the asylum, if not the first 30 minutes of the movie. Then after that, it's gonna be the breakout where those two are gonna leave and it's going to be a lot more focused on Glass. We're going to hear a lot more about Glass, and then like the last 30 minutes is going to be this whole like everything's coming together, shit's hitting the fan, fucking the Horde and Unbreakable are fighting and shit like that, while Glass is kind of pulling the strings and doing what he's doing. So I think that's kind of how Glass is going to go, personally.
Okay. Now, what else do we know? Do we know anything else about Dunn or Glass from that first movie, Unbreakable, back in 2000, that you think is particularly useful? Is there a significant doctor? Is there a significant person? Did somebody die that's particularly important? Or did somebody live? Or did some event happen that they may flash back to that would be valuable to know?
So I mean, obviously, we'll talk about this one more in the other episode. There is a specific person that's coming back from Split that's not like a main character,
Okay.
and I think that's to kind of like help coax certain personalities to come out in Glass. So I think that's going to be interesting. But as far as the first one, they are bringing his son back. Dunn's son is going to be in there,
Hmm.
which they got the same actor, which I thought that was kind of cool because this is fucking 19 years later.
Yeah.
Um, so, but I don't really think he had like a crucial part. Even the mother of Glass is coming back, and it's the same actress, which is also pretty cool as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So I don't really think that there's anybody as far as that goes. I'm gonna be kind of interested to see more about what they do with his weakness to water.
Hmm.
That's gonna be interesting to see. They go a little bit more into that. I'm trying to think. Oh, another thing I guess to point out is that Dunn does have another superpower, which is that he can actually. It's funny because they make fun of the whole fact that he did the sixth sense, so they call it his sixth sense. Um, if he touches somebody, he can fill off their negative vibes. He says it's more of a vibe that he picks up, and the more heinous the act or the heinous the crime, the stronger the vibe is. But in the movie, it plays like flashes. Like he can actually see bits and pieces of what they've seen throughout their memories. And that's how Glass is gonna start. Is like with the dude getting off the bus, the Horde, and he bumps shoulders with Unbreakable, and Unbreakable gets the flashbacks of the cheerleaders and shit like that. And that's supposedly how it's supposed to start. But that's a pretty interesting power. And while that's something, that's another theory that's out there is that once again we were talking about complete and total polar opposites. If he, that's what solidifies that theory a little bit more. If he can see into people's minds and be able to see these things that have happened, it completely makes sense that the opposite would be being able to control people's minds for Glass to have the opposite effect of that. So that's another thing that people are trying to like. It's a whole bunch of theories that they're trying to staple together, and some of them feel like they click. They really do. So it'd be interesting
Hmm.
to see what actually is real when the movie comes out, because there's no way we're not gonna know. I mean, like I said, I just think there's no way in fuck they're just keeping him sedated 24/7 because he's fucking smart. That doesn't make any sense to me. You literally have the Unbreakable Man and a guy with 24 personalities. One of them that he calls a beast that lets him crawl on fucking ceilings and rip metal bars off, and they're not sedated at all. They're just fucking chilling in their own fucking rooms. But Mr. Glass, we have him completely fucking sedated 24/7. This brutal old man
Hmm.
in a wheelchair. That makes sense.
Okay. Now, I think you may have answered this, but I want to make sure that I ask it directly. Do we have any idea how they came about whatever these powers are?
I believe it was just what they were born with. I think the
Okay,
only
so a
person that it
cause isn't
really,
known.
yeah, kind of. I mean, once again, I could be wrong about this. It's been a very long time since I've seen Unbreakable. I kind of freshened up on a little bit of knowledge, but I can't remember if like. I think it's just he was born that way, and it's just how he is. Because they were talking about that could be a reason why they bring his son back in this movie too, to see if maybe he has anything going on, and see if it was like
Mm-hmm.
genetically passed down. So I do think it is kind of like unknown origin as far as the powers are concerned.
Hmm.
Um, which is definitely interesting for sure. And Glass, I mean, like I said, if he has a superpower, we definitely don't know about it yet, but everything else he has was definitely born with. So, and then I think they touched on Kevin Crumb's shit was the fact that he started to develop these personalities because his mother was very abusive, and
Yeah.
it caused a lot of different personality splits within him in order to help protect his psyche and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, which they did say we will actually see 21 out of the 24 personalities in Glass. 21.
Man, that's going to be very interesting. I'm excited for the actor that they I know they chose him back in Split, so we won't go. We'll save that most of that for the rest of, for that one. But that actor, I think, is one of the few that can try to bring 20 something different
Oh, for
personalities
sure. He
to
did
the
really good
screen
with
and
those.
actually
Yeah.
do a damn good job with it.
Oh,
So this is going
absolutely.
to be great.
His name's James McAvoy, right? I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's who it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. Did you actually watch the trailer for Glass?
I watched the trailer for Glass.
So
Yes.
that's the most like hyped I am for that movie is whenever they show the scene of them using those lights to flip his personalities to change his personalities and
Yes.
rapidly change the room. I'm actually really excited to see like how that actually all works out because I thought that was a very interesting way, and I'm once again we'll obviously touch on it more in that one. I thought that was a very interesting way for them to consider like whoever is controlling the body as whoever's holding the light. So it's all like, oh well, so and so is trying to take the light from me, and then they take the light, and that's the personality that comes out. So I thought that was very interesting, and for them to keep that going into Glass and actually have it make a like significant meaning, that's pretty fucking
Hmm.
cool to me. So I'm excited to see that happen for sure. But as far as that goes, I mean, the only other thing to really talk about that I think is really fucking interesting that M Night Shyamalan pulled off, which is it's a kind of a tap to comic book fans and stuff like that, is that if you actually go back and watch Unbreakable from start to finish, you'll never see a scene where the color green is not either on or somewhere near Unbreakable, and the color purple isn't on or somewhere near Glass to give that old school feel of comics where like the color is always associated with that character. The Joker always wears a purple suit. The Batman always wears a black costume. So stuff like that,
Huh.
that's really fucking cool to me. So like every shirt he has, like he's known for wearing his one poncho that says security on it. It's a green poncho. Glass has purple suits. He's got his like even they even talked about that in the fucking trailer for Glass too. Like the walls are purple in his cell and stuff like that. Like I thought that was pretty fucking cool. So just another
Okay,
cool
so
little
he's
tip.
definitely making a nod towards an older storytelling
Right.
practice. Okay, that's very cool.
Right. There's just a lot of stuff that he did very well in the first movie that like just really brought it to a point where like you can really appreciate what he did. Like another thing that he did that the actors really enjoyed was that instead of doing like shot for shots as far as that goes, like he would have them actually do like entire scenes within one take. So that
Mhm.
way instead of it's like, okay, everybody stop. All right, now you sit at the bar stool, you sit at the bar stool, you guys kind of crowd around him a little bit, and now you talk. All right, stop. All right, let's run that again. Like he would do a whole scene and it was like a wide capture. So it was more of like just throw everybody in the room, everybody act like it's a party, you two have a meaningful conversation, and then just go and just let it go. And like that was really cool to be able to give that more like you felt like you were there. And a lot of the shots that he tried to do, like the still shots and stuff, if you actually go back
Mhm.
and watch the movie. And like if you've ever read comic books and you try to like watch the scenes, especially when you get to the still shots with like a comic book frame of mind, he tried to make them look like if you had pulled it right out of a comic book panel, which I thought was also pretty cool.
Wow.
So yeah,
That is
he definitely went above and beyond for that for sure. Definitely a nice little nod.
man. All right. Anything else that you think that we need to know specifically about David Dunn or Elijah Price before we walk into this? Anything else just to keep our eyes out for?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see why they brought the mom back and what that's gonna be all about. But yeah, I mean, if we pretty much covered there what we know about Price and what we know about Dunn, I don't think there's anything else. Um, Although there could be like a little bit of back and forth with Dunn's wife. I don't think she died at the end of the movie. I can't remember. If she did die, then there could be some back and forth with that because that was another interesting thing that they talked about. Could be part of his like mental mind control is whenever he falls down the stairs after when he's chasing after Dunn and breaks his body, he somehow out of all the physical therapy people out there, he ends up seeing Dunn's wife as his caretaker. So that's another thing to think that he personally put into motion with his mental powers. So
Oh, yeah. There's something very sketchy about that.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I would like to think that someone like M Night Shyamalan, which I'm not saying he's the best director in the world because he's definitely not, but I definitely think the guy is talented. It's hard for me to believe that he'd be like because of plot. Like I don't see that happening that much with that guy.
No, and it feels like this is a little bit of a baby for him in like, this is the type of story that he likes to tell as far as like with these interweaving tales and like these big reveals. Like that's what he's known for. It just seems like he's doing that in a longer and more like kind of more comic booky kind of setting, and so it's I'm excited to see what else he can do with it because I think he set up he set up something very good between Unbreakable and Split, and so I'm excited to see how it comes together in Glass.
Yeah, no, I mean not to even mention like no one knew Split had anything to do with Unbreakable until the
Hmm.
last 5 seconds of the fucking end credit scene. Like no one knew at all, not once. And then it's like after you know it has to do with Unbreakable, once again the classic M Night Shyamalan. Let me slap you in the face for watching my movie, and now go watch it again so you actually understand what the fuck was going on. So then you go watch it again, and it's like okay, well this is all starting to kind of tie in together and make a little bit more sense. And actually, apparently, in Unbreakable, there's a scene where Glass has a comic book out, and it shows like this beast-like creature, kind of like a Wolverine-looking kind of guy, and he has his hands on two iron bars and he's pulling them back, and that's literally the last scene that you see of the beast is him pulling those two bars back to get to that little girl that had the shotgun that shot him twice in the movie. And they're all like, "Wow, that's pretty fucking impressive."
It would be interesting, especially given that they already included that comic book moment and then made that into Split. It would be interesting to see if there's a conversation around or an argument for Glass being behind some of Split and some of what happened to them. I don't want to give like we've given away a lot of it, but I know we're going to go into a deeper conversation about Split. But I wonder if there is a connection between the two of them even before they meet in the next movie.
Well, we won't know about it until the end of the next movie because that's
Yeah,
M Night
that's true.
Shyamalan for you. But I mean, one thing that I guess I could say about the actual character Glass that I thought was pretty cool, which kind of ties into the whole comic book thing, is that he said to Unbreakable in the movie uh, that I believe that comic books are actually real, but that they're just cartooned up and slammed on for prices. So he believes that everything that's ever happened to a superhero has actually happened to someone in real life, and that the story came from somewhere real,
Hmm.
and that they turned it into something in order to make money off of it. So that's kind of interesting, especially if he's reading that many comics, and then we literally had that scene where he's literally has the comic open. And I think his finger was almost pointing to it too, or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the analysis was, but they free shot on it, and it's like this comic that's on the table, and he's looking directly down at it, and it's like the far left panel, and it literally just shows this Wolverine-ish looking like beast type character just prying these bars open, and then like literally that's what we get at the end of Split was him doing that to try to get to that little girl. So, which goes to even show that I mean, I highly doubt M. Night Shyamalan was looking over that movie and going, oh, you know, this one fucking part right here in this comic? Let's put that in the movie. It goes to show that there
Mm-hmm.
was always ideas of putting this character in. It just didn't work out. And so, therefore, they put him in the next movie. And then that was kind of a tip back to the old movie saying, yeah, he was definitely supposed to be here. So, but it makes sense.
Oh.
Like I said, I like the way it is because they keep showing this like comic book store, and then apparently it's going to show up in Glass too, which I think is awesome. There's this comic book store where you walk in, which makes zero sense whatsoever. But you walk into the comic book store, and it's like the left side is all green, the right side is all purple, and the left side has a neon light that says heroes, and the right side has a neon light that says villains, which is cool and
Ooh.
all. But it's like, I mean, how many comic books out there are just done completely off of villains? Like the left side's going to be overflowing with comics, and the right side's going to be like close stuff like Ghost Town. Not really. There are a lot of villain comics, but still, not nowhere near as many as superhero comics.
Now, in Unbreakable, just because I'm curious, was David Dunn set up by Elijah to be a hero, or was he set up to be a villain?
He was set up to be a hero, yes, because Elijah viewed him as a superhero. But it was more of a setup for him to use his full potential. Elijah wants to see his full potential, and he says that in the Glass trailer as well. Whenever he lets the beast out, he says, "If you don't hurry, hundreds of innocent people are going to die, and you will have to use your full potential this time."
Ooh.
So,
That's
which
cool.
seeing the beast literally take two shotgun shots and it didn't fucking phase him at point blank range, it's going to be a pretty interesting fight for sure. Especially because
Yeah.
the one fucking scene we have of them fighting is fucking Beast knocking him into a water tower. So it's gonna be pretty interesting. Because I'm pretty sure the Beast isn't scared of water. So
Oh, man.
yep, yep, yep.
What a cool idea. Any other last final thoughts that we have about Unbreakable?
I don't think so. I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else that would really add any significance to the movie besides, I mean, maybe if people are wondering what Unbreakable's been up to since then, and that he became like a vigilante. So he took a security guard job a little bit more serious and is just kind of like, you know,
Oh.
stopping crime when he can. So other than that, I think that's
Okay.
about it.
So he's using his powers kind of on the sly and for good then.
Yeah, he's just trying to figure out more about himself, and by doing that, he's also trying to do what he can to help people as well. So
Okay, so M. Night Shyamalan set us up for Split, which we're going to discuss in the next episode, and then he also set us up for Glass by introducing these two characters, kind of using these colors to let us know this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, even from the beginning. It sounds like, which is amazing, and then we're throwing in Split and the character in Split that's going to totally kind of mess this up because my guess is there's a lot that both of these guys, both David Dunn and Elijah Price can do with the different personalities that are in Split. So I think this movie is going to be very interesting. And so everybody stay tuned for the next episode that we're going to release, which is going to be a little bit more of a deep dive on Split, just because M. Night Shyamalan felt that that particular character was interesting enough to give his own movie to. So we're going to kind of walk through that story and prep you guys for Glass, which should be coming out here this week. And we will see you guys next time in our study group. And so have a great day and bye, friends.